spin that, okay? You want to spin it? Oh, you were taking apart clothespins, huh? Okay, just go ahead and spin it. There you go. Do it. Go. Hey, friends. Do you have your treats? It's story time. We went to a dental appointment for my little guy today, which always causes some frustration and anxiety. But our dentist we've known, he's a children's dentist. We've known him since my daughter was, before she was walking. And just by chance, his brother baptized her. So at this point, he's like an old family friend. I'm hoping that you'll indulge me today because this is a video I've wanted to make for a really long time. And it has to do with how knitting affects my decluttering and how the two, for me, kind of go hand in hand. And I'm also kind of wondering, I'm kind of curious if there's anyone else out there who may have the same experience. And what do you do to help regulate yourself when you're decluttering? If you are someone here who has been around for a while and you're only interested in the decluttering content, then you're going to want to skip this video. Peace be with you. Have a wonderful day. I miss you. If you are someone who found this video because you're a knitter, hey friend, this is not my normal content. My normal content is decluttering, but I've always wanted to kind of have my channel be a reflection of the season that I'm in and a reflection of all of me, just not this tiny little niche, you know, especially not something like my messy house and me trying desperately to unload stuff in it. So let's grab a treat or grab a cup of whatever you're drinking these days. If this is morning, better not be no liquor. I know it. I know it's that season. It feels heavy right now. Maybe you want to come back to it later for the afternoon aperitif. So one thing I've always noticed is that knitting really helps put me in like a meditative state. And it's just my craft of choice right now. I'm sure before it was cross stitch because I used to cross stitch since I was a teenager. And then about 15-20 years ago, I found knitting when my daughter was born, or just after she was born. I wanted to find something to do so that I can make like cute things for her. But little did I know, like, you don't just become a good knitter overnight, right? I mean, I'm still learning. I'm still not a great knitter, but I am detail oriented, so that makes me a good knitter. I still have a lot of skills to learn because I'm not a machine. I am totally a sloth knitter. I try to challenge myself to learn new things. What I've been doing is when I come up against an obstacle, like I get overwhelmed by a space I'm wanting to declutter, or I don't know where to start, or I'm decluttering in a space and I can't get rid of something. I've been putting all those emotions, or I get panicked about how much I've gotten rid of, or I get frustrated that I'm not getting rid of enough, or it's not going fast enough. You know, all the stuff, right? All the emotions some of us have around decluttering our lives. I put that into my knitting, and I will sit down after I declutter, or if I'm stalling, I'll sit down before I declutter to kind of get my mind in the right space, because knitting puts me in a meditative state that I can clear out the everyday worries and the everyday stress and think about one specific thing and try to forge a path ahead in my brain, right? I wanted to try to just document some of the things that I've been making while I've been decluttering. This year I branched out. This past year I branched out. And so I'd like to start documenting what I'm making. I'm gonna back it up to 2022. I had been knitting probably for about 18 years, and I was getting Malabrigo Rio to make a hat and some wristlets for my son for Halloween. While I was there getting the yarn for the dragon hat, the yarn shop owner said that she was creating a class for the 2023 season, and it was going to be a year of socks, and every month we were going to tackle a new heel. Socks are my jam, and so it was like, hey, sign me up, let me know when I need to come in and purchase this thing. And she said, I'm gonna have it ready for Christmas time. So before my daughter leaves Spain, she's coming home just before Christmas. So before she leaves Spain, she goes to a yarn store and grabs me 3 balls of sock yarn. And it's gorgeous. Kind of my colors. I love it. And it's by a company called ADR. And I can't, it's a Spanish name, so I can't remember it off the top of my head, but it's ADR. And it was wool, half acrylic. So this is my Christmas present. And so I get to the first class in January 2023, and the yarn shop owner announces that we are not, in fact, doing a year of heels, which I hadn't even, I'm looking at the binder as I sit down and I'm going, what? So she decided that she was going to get a bunch of free patterns off of Ravelry that would teach us different types of tricks to knit socks. And she was not going to teach anything. She was just giving us this binder and giving us space. It was the equivalent of parents sending their children to a private preschool so that they can buy friends. I mean, oh God, I don't know if this is going to work for me. But I look at the first pattern and it's a vanilla sock. And we were required to be intermediate sock knitters. So I think all of us have already done a vanilla sock with a flap heel, right? So I used this yarn for that. And I got both of the socks done to the feet. And I am a sloth knitter, so this took me until March, right? Now I had cast on in February, the February sock, and then I bought more needles to cast on the March sock. And I was trying to just keep up because my idea was I'm just going to do a bunch of shorties and get the cuff and the leg knit so that I'd be ready for the heel. And then I'd do both heels and then just put them on waste yarn and finish them this year. So there was no doing that because now we were learning to knit socks 2 at a time, which is never going to happen for me because my brain does not function that way. If you are a person who can knit 2 at a time socks, I'm in awe. You're amazing. So, and I kind of am jealous because I kind of would love to know how you do it. I was like, okay, so if this was your MO, to have us franken knit a sock in December and pick all of the tricks that we needed, and the only patterns you downloaded and used were patterns that fit you, the shop owner's foot, and were not size inclusive, then the first pattern should have been, here is how you measure your foot so you can alter a sock pattern to make it fit your foot every single time, right? Okay, I'm off my soapbox now. Anyway, I was trying to finish January socks, simultaneously casting on February socks. Then I was trying to finish at least one February sock since I knew how the feet in January were going to go. I needed to get the garter stitch heel and the Eye of Partridge pattern kind of like done so that if I had any questions, I could ask in February's meeting. And then in February's meeting, we were casting on March's sock. So all of a sudden I was just like, overloaded. And so all my knitting besties were telling me, they're like, you really need to reclaim this class, and you need to do this for you, and you need to figure out something so that you don't burn out, because if you burn out, you're going to be sunk. So I ended up falling down our stairs in April last year, 2023. And I could not go and sit in classes. It was just too painful to sit for 3 hours on a hard chair. And a lot of, April, May, part of June, I was spent lying in bed because I couldn't really walk a lot. I couldn't sit a lot. I was just doing exercise as much as I could all day long to try to help strengthen my back and my hips. And so I decided in July, I really need to do something knitting wise, because I don't want to look at these socks, and I need, it's about time to do Christmas knitting. Maybe I should try to knit something for Christmas. So I decided I would knit something for my parents for Christmas. I decided I wanted to knit a vest for my dad. And I found his vest pattern by Church Mouse Yarns. And I will say it's a very well written pattern, and it has a lot of good tutorials within it, but it does have some very confusing directions, especially around the V-neck. But I will say that when you have questions and you write them, they are very responsive and they are very helpful. It's a very thorough lesson in measuring sweaters so that you can get the fit that you need. I ended up adding 4 inches of my dad's measurements to the pattern so that he could get the fit that he loves from his errant sweater that I got him in Ireland. So it turned out perfect. It fits perfectly. And he loves it. He was like, I feel like I look like a professor. Like, well, if the sweater vest fits. It's our outside. For that one, I used Malabrigo Rio in Paris Night, and it looks great on my dad. It's really dark blue. And then I happened to go to, in our travels during the summertime, I happened to go to my favorite yarn store in Washington so far, down in Olympia. And she had kits called Buckyball Wrap kit, and it was made with Noro yarn, and there were 2 different Noro yarns. I don't remember the name. One of them was Baki, but I don't remember which it was. One was like a man-made yarn that was kind of ruffly, and another was wool, like super bulky wool, and you used them to knit 2 rows alternating. One would be wool, one would be man-made, one would be wool. And the man-made yarn just kind of felt really, man-made against the wool. And so I thought, well, I've seen all these people knitting with mohair. Let me add a mohair to it. That turned out really well. The mohair in the man-made yarn that I added to the man-made yarn left the halo like the wool had, and it really pulled out like the purples in the yarn. So it was a really great thing, and Mom loves that. She looks great in it, and her and Dad kind of coordinate when they wear them, so it's pretty cool. And the other thing I realized, and I have here to show you, is my daughter. I thought, what else can I knit for Christmas this year? So my daughter and this memory just came up in Facebook. 9 years ago, she wanted to have, for homeschool, she wanted to have an exploration of the arts. And so she chose some different arts that she wanted to look into, and one of them was knitting. So I secured a tutor. They made this wonderful knit kit for her. This pattern was not in our knit kit, but it had Aldi, My First Knitting needles, and they're metal, and they're covered with like a rubber, and they were white with one tip that had blue heart on it and the other tip had a red heart on it. And this pattern, whoever made this pattern, is fabulous. I have no idea the yarn. It's a wool, but I didn't find any labels in there for it. But I found 4 balls, and she had gone about 2/3 of the way through and stopped. And I think she had the same problem I did, that having to return to a class every week or every other week while you're having to knit so much, and you're just learning, or you're not you're more of a process knitter. You're not like a let's hurry up and get it done knitter. It's a lot of pressure. So we didn't finish it. It sat in my cabinet back here for 9 years. And so I said, let's get this out and finish it. And then we have a present for Dad. So this pattern is genius. It's a garter stitch border. And it's about 5 to 6 garter stitches on one side. It's a knit, purl, knit, purl, knit, purl for like 10 or 12 stitches. And then it's garter stitch for like another 20, 25, or however wide you want to make it. I wish I knew who to give credit to, because this is brilliant. Because the person who is doing the purling and a brand new knitter does not have to purl, 45 stitches of stockinette, right? And knit on one side and purl on the other. This is a genius pattern. And even if you wanted to do stockinette in here to where you only purled, 10 stitches instead of doing ribbing, and you just purled 10 stitches, that would be fabulous. Okay. So that brings me up to sock madness. Okay. So when we got home in January, I said, okay, now let's recommit to the sock thing, because we're going to get this done. Okay. If I can figure out the directions, I'm going to get this done. I paid for it. I'm going to learn it. So I go to work the January socks. And I said, these are just thick. And this is Spanish yarn, and I'm going to stick it in a shoe. I think I would rather it be a cowl or wristlets or something that I can see and reminds me of my kiddo, and reminds me that she brought me this. She was thoughtful enough to bring me this yarn from Spain. But also, if somebody, that's beautiful, whatever I decide to knit. Oh yeah, I get to brag. Oh yeah, my daughter brought me the yarn from Spain. So I frogged the socks. They were vanilla socks. Who wants vanilla socks when you're an intermediate sock knitter? I didn't pay to learn to knit vanilla socks, right? At the same time, I was knitting a sock head hat by Jimmy Bean's Wool, I believe it is. And I had knit one for my daughter in my color, red, which is also her color as well. Or it looks good on her anyway. And I thought this would look good on me. But the more I started knitting, or the more I kept knitting, excuse me, the more I realized this is not a color for redheads. It doesn't look good. It doesn't look good. I'm a dark gray. It has mohair in it. I frogged the mohair and this. So those are bound to become projects for summertime when we're traveling. Isn't this the cutest? I love this. The minute I found this, I said, oh, I have to have that because I'm going to keep my sock stuff in it. I pulled up my February socks. This is about beginning of February. I think I finally decided to frog those socks. The more I worked on them, or the more I looked at them. So these are my February socks. Almost done. Just have the foot. The pattern is called Hermione, and it's notable because it has it has this really cool pattern repeat, and then it has this garter stitch edge, so you just pick up the garter stitch bumps instead of selvage stitches. camera. Hello. Thank you. Okay, so this has been a fun one. I think this is one of my new favorite patterns. It's very intricate, so but it's very meditative. So it looks like I have about Bigfoot more centimeters to go. I have about 8 more centimeters to go before I can start working on the toe. So these are almost done. Laverne is done. I'm still working on Shirley, so those will be done soon. And I always like to have a couple of patterns going so that I have my pattern I take with me when I'm waiting places, and I have my pattern that I work in when I want to be mentally challenged, in the zone, trying to think about what I'm doing about my decluttering, right? So I cast on this bad boy. It is the Santa Cruz wrap. And I will say I am not pleased because while it is an amazing design, I mean, look at that Art Deco stuff. And you start with a circle here and you knit a square in the round on DPNs, and then you cast on provisionally and you cast off your square while you're knitting the border. And then you come over here and you cast on provisionally while you start working the rectangular end. This rectangular end is in repeats of 24. When I finished 24 and went back to row 1, the yarn overs were 1 off. I frogged it about 7 times. I wrote the designer to see if there was any corrections. I never heard back. It still kept coming out the same way. So I am going to give it the old college try. I had this done about up to here. So I'm going to frog it back to my cast on, my provisional cast ons. And I'm going to try it one more time. And if it does not work, I'm ditching the whole thing and ditching the yarn. And we will be picking something else. So as I tink this back stitch by stitch, I said, okay, I need another project that will go my way, which I've already frogged it twice. My son, for some of the people who have been here for a while, my son has sensory issues around clothing. So his birthday best is what he prefers. One of the things that we're working on is trying to desensitize the issues around clothing. So he grabbed a pair of my mittens. My mom found these really cool mittens. They are like Bernie Inauguration Day 2021. Person near her makes during the winter time to sell, and they take thrifted sweaters and they just make the big mittens, right? Mittens a la Bernie. So he's been putting those on with a hat, with a jacket, and going outside when it's cold. This is huge, right? So I thought, you know what? He needs his own mittens. So I found a pattern on Ravelry. It's called Nora Mittens. And so far I'm having a hard time with the cast on that you have to do at the thumb, but this second time I said, I'm just going for it. We'll fix the hole later, because I am just loving how this yarn is knitting up. It is yarn from Malabrigo Mecha. I love Malabrigo. It's when things call for any type of fancier wool or cashmere, whatever, I say, Mama can afford Malabrigo. That's about the limit. So it's called Anniversario. It's so gorgeous. It's like the grown-up rainbow. Okay, so I loved this, and I think it's gonna look super sweet on him, but the green that's in here is not the green in the hat I've already made for him with the dragon thing. So he's gonna have to have a new hat. So my daughter and I were trying to figure out what would be best, and we can't. I kind of like this purple. I kind of, well, let's do it this way. I kind of like this purple. I kind of think this pulls a lot of purple out of the fabric that I'm creating, but you know, we could go blue too. We could go blue too. I mean, there's blue in there, but I really kind of think that the purple looks really good with it, and I think that would be great. And I could make him a purple dragon. So we'll figure that out at a later date. So that's where I'm at right now, and I think that's the end of my show and tell. I do realize that it's March and I don't have my February socks done yet, but you know, like I said, I do not knit quickly, and these size 1.5 needles. I normally knit size 3. So we'll be working on these probably for the month of March. If you're old or new here, I really appreciate you spending your time with me, and I hope you'll stick around. I promise there are decluttering videos in the works. It's been a February, and it was a January, but it's okay. It's getting better. Back is getting better little by little, but I can stand up all the way now. So I hope you have a lovely day. Whatever it is you're working on, I hope you have a successful day. And if you're not working on anything and you're just taking a rest day, I hope you have a wonderful day. Take care, and we'll see you next time.